Hello lovely people, I'm Catherine and welcome to week 52, yes week 52 of our Slowstitch project for 2024. This week is by special request of Nancy, who sent me a message linking to this artist called Julia Wright on Instagram, and I will link her Instagram below. And she does beautiful structured work. She makes jewellery with it, I believe, using wrapped cloth and fibres. So, and now this is all new to me, so I've had a bit of a play, but Nancy asked, so I'm happy to oblige. So basically what I've done, her work is very intricate, very time consuming, very beautiful. Do go and have a look at her Instagram feed. Mine is going to be a bit, slapdash and just in the spirit of kind of thing. So, but the basic principle is that you choose fibres, and I've chosen just whatever I've got lying around. So this was some Icelandic wool, quite thick wool. This is some raw fleece. But also, if you don't have things like that, I've just got normal string that's actually probably been through an eco print bath, but it doesn't have to have been, just string. That thickness, and I've also got this really thick, soft string. Now you will have to be able to stitch, maybe not the string, but the cloth. So just bear that in mind if you don't choose anything really hard. And I've also got a little pile of strips out of my scraps, just very thin strips of different cloths, and I've gone for my usual, non-colour colours, if you want to call them like that. That's a bit of silk chiffon. That's a bit of something else silky from a charity shop, I think. Normal silk. But if you only have cotton scraps, then that's also obviously absolutely fine. That's a bit of old cotton sheet. That's a bit of a woolly blanket, just but sort of long thin scraps, and some variety of texture if you can. And then to actually wrap around them, I've got this I got recently in a little gift box that somebody sent me. It's just some cotton yarn, crochet yarn, with some thread hair on it already. Only been in the house 5 minutes. Some linen thread, but if you've just got thicker threads or even 6 strands of embroidery floss, that's some vintage, I think it's actually polyester crochet stuff. And then I've got some of these lovely fibres from Jill in Scotland. So you need basically thicker things or strips of cloth that you can wrap, that can form the core of your wraps, and then thinner things to do the wrapping. And the actual process is straightforward, but it's quite time consuming. I sat yesterday evening watching a series, and I made these. Not very many. Where are we? So I made those few different ones. Do you see? They're just lovely textural forms in themselves. Now I think I'm going to sort of stitch, couch, whatever them onto this little back cloth. This is a bit of, what's it called? African strip cloth, bark cloth I think it's called. Someone gave it to me. It's quite sturdy. If you didn't have something sturdy, then you can just, do the usual invisible base 2 bits of cloth together just to make it a bit sturdier. This is a little bit of silk chiffon that I gathered. So I'm going to show you how I made this little thing, which is very straightforward, and I'm going to show you how I wrapped one of these. This is a strip of woolly blanket, and it's wrapped with some of this vintage crochet stuff. Basically just wrap it round. It's that simple. Thank you so much for watching. No, I will do more. That's also a woolly blanket. The woolly blanket worked really well actually, because you could kind of fold it. I probably would make that a bit thinner, but just to show you, if you kind of fold it like that and then wrap it, it gets a more rounded form. And then the wrapping pulls it in, and so it pulls it in one part, and then where you don't wrap it, it puffs up, so it gives it texture. If you go and look at Julia's work, you'll see she makes actual little round balls and sort of Suffolk puffs upside down, but tiny and intricate, and it's just stunning. Do go and look. This was a strip of cloth. This is really thick and quite stiff. It's a strip of cloth that I wrap round some of this thick string and then bound it again with the crochet cotton. That is a bit of string that I wrap silk chiffon round and bound it with some of this nubbly stuff from Jill. So you can play with the colours, you can play with the textures. This was the Alafos Lopi, the Icelandic wool. This was 3 strands of it, and then it was just wrapped with some pearl cotton. And I really love that one. It's really soft and you can form it. So you can really see, if you wanted to play with making 3-dimensional structures with it, how you can play with how this one's really quite firm and this is really soft. And also I see all kinds of nature-inspired possibilities here, you know, with roots and vines and, you know, natural forms. That's some of the Cotswold fleece, wrapped again with Stells. Sorry, she's having a little scratch. Wrapped again just with cotton pearl. Oh no, it's not, it's wrapped with that. It's wrapped with that crochet cotton. And that's just a simple strip of cloth wrapped with, that is wrapped with cotton pearl. So that's really soft and loose. I deliberately didn't wrap that very tightly. So you can wrap really tight and close and that gives you one effect, or you can wrap really loose and open, and I just wrapped in one direction and that gives you another effect. So you can sit and have great fun playing with all your little bits and bobs and scraps, and just create lots of these little beautiful wiggly worms. So let me just show you, I'll wrap one just to show you the basic procedure, and I'll show you how I made this little thing. I don't even know what to call it. And then I'll stitch them on there somehow, don't know how yet. I'll put all that to one side. So I've got my lovely new felt mat from Machtalt. Thank you, Machtalt. What shall I wrap? Let's do some of this woolly blanket. I'm going to cut it, it's wool so I can use my snippies. I'm going to cut it to maybe 3/4 of an inch wide-ish, but I can wrap both of these pieces. Now I would say don't get great big long lengths to wrap because you'll get in a tangle. I just did short lengths. I mean, you could do, depending on how you wanted to use them, I suppose you could do longer, but I just found it quite tangly. So let's use this bit, and let's use something so you can see, probably if I use the white against the brown. Oh, the other thing I pulled out was a bit of pre-made cloth twine, because the process reminded me a bit of cloth twining, and that's a long wiggly worm, and I thought that might, you know, sit nice, play nicely with them. So that was my idea, my contribution to the party. Throw in some cloth twine, I nearly said. So all I did was, bearing in mind I have no clue what I'm doing, and I just looked and thought, how would I do this? And it's very likely not the way Julia does it, but you know, I'm doing me because I know no different. I got a tail of about an inch or inch and a half, and laid it like that, like in the case of this wool blanket that I'm going to fold. And then I folded my woolly blanket with the tail sort of trapped inside, and then I just started wrapping. And it's quite hard for me to not have my fingers in the way because it'll all come undone. But I just wrapped round and round and folded this as I went. And I think the easiest thing is to just wrap fairly big in one direction. Pull it as tight or leave it as loose as you like. If you pull it too tight, it kind of wants to curl in on itself, but maybe that's an effect that you like. And I just wrapped. I thought wrapping was, you know, this time of year. That's quite appropriate. Let's do some wrapping. And I just wrapped and wrapped until I got to, imagine I've got to the end, because you don't really need to see me. Oh, shall I do the whole thing? Yeah, let's just do the whole thing, and I can use it, can't I? And when I got sort of to the middle, again it reminded me of wrapping an eco print bundle. It's funny how you make all these connections. I turned it then and wrapped the other way. There's a bit of blue something stuck in there which we don't really want. So I'm just wrapping. Simple as that, really. And then when I got sort of up near the end, I just wrapped back the other way, which you don't have, you know, you could leave it just a single wrap like that, but I sort of wrapped the other way and crossed my previous wraps on some of them, and I quite like the look of that. It's almost like a lacing on a bodice or something, you know, or in those days when they used to put us in corsets. Thank goodness they don't try to do that anymore. Scarlett O'Hara holding onto the bedstead, being laced in. Don't know why I suddenly thought of that, because it looks like lacing. So yeah, just wrapping. And then when I got to the end, because it reminded me of eco bundle diet, you know, eco printing and wrapping a bundle, I did exactly the same sort of knot that I do when I do that, which is, let's get there quickly. I cut myself a tail, and then I put my finger in the way and I wrap round my finger, and then I pulled it through. I have no clue what happens if you cut these somewhere when you've stitched them on to stop them unravelling. So we'll see what happens. We're on a journey of discovery, all thanks to Nancy. Now you could, I guess, lay your strip of this on to your backing thing, cloth, and then couch, and so you're doing the wrapping and the stitching all in one go. But that will give a different effect, because if you've got, well, let's get something wider. If you've got something, if I just twist this roughly, so imagine you twisted that, laid it on there and did couching like we did after I'd been to see Judy Martin. It'll sit flat against the cloth with the couching over the top of it, whereas with this laid on and then stitched, you could couch over, but you could also just do little stitches here, which is what I'm going to do, just to tacking it down almost. That sits on very much on the surface as a separate structure, if that makes sense. So you could play with both. You could do some of these and some couching. You know, you can just have an experiment and see how different they look. You could take the same cloth and the same thread and do it like this, and then use the same cloth and stitch with the same thread to just couch and, you know, explore the differences. Again, it's, for me, it's kind of an experimental piece, so it's all about exploring. So I've got my, there's that one finished. I'm just leaving that like that because, like I said, if I need to cut it to length, and I am going to try just to see what happens, I don't know what's going to stop it unravelling. You know, I didn't have time to go and do a proper online course or go on a workshop before the end of the year so that I could show you. And I tend, this is me and my brain, if I see something, this is where I couch wrong. This is where my couching stitches go not like most people's, because I see the end result of something and then I just play and do it rather than learning how to do it properly. Anyway, there are advantages and disadvantages to that method, but you're stuck with me now, so there we go. Oh, I said I'd show you the other thing. So that's that. So this little ruffly thing was super simple. Let's get another bit of the same stuff. Don't really need it to be that long. Have I got a smaller bit? No. Yes, I have. There we go. I've got a piece already cut. So this is about 1.5 inches wide, and I just got some, this is one strand of embroidery cotton with a knot in the end. I just folded it in half just because it's thin. There's no reason why you couldn't do it with just a single width of fabric cloth. And then I did a back stitch just to make sure it was really anchored at that end, because I'm going to gather. And then I just did big-ish running stitches. Now, however big you do the stitch, that's kind of the size of the ruffle you're going to make. So the bigger your stitch, the bigger your ruffles. So I'll do them maybe 1/2 inch or so. And I only use these tiny short needles, so I can't do many at once. If you had a bigger needle, and then you can gather it up a bit as you go. Do you see? And it'll ping back again, but that's no matter. And you get these cute little, so again with this you could put it right up, or you could just play with, you know, pulling it partly up, just so it's a bit, I'll do, maybe I'll just pull this, I'll pull it right up to show you, and then I'll let it pull back. So just be careful that you don't get knots in your thread as you go, or it'll stop you pulling it up. Simple, it's just simple. And you can, you know, if you get yourself a little stack of odds and ends, threads and strips of scraps, and sit and play, I'm sure you can come up with other ways as well. These are just the two basic ways. Little balls, a friend of mine called Lucy, who's in CQ West, makes necklaces. Now I don't know how she does it, but I've seen the finished necklaces. I think she has little balls, I'm not sure what they're made of, whether they're wood or whatever, like beads, and a strip of cloth, and then she ties knots. So she puts the bead inside the cloth and ties knots either side to hold it in place. So you end up with a necklace of you know, little round balls, but all covered in the same cloth. Does that make sense? So you could experiment with something like that if you had some little wooden beads or something. Right, so I got to the end. So now I'm going to gather it. Maybe not on there, which is clearer, on the dark, or maybe on there. So I'm going to just pull it up to make a form that I'm happy with. Sort of like that, maybe. And then when I'm happy with it, I'm going to anchor the end of the thread so it doesn't pull back again. This is super hairy, this silk chiffon. There we go. So I've got this little thing, this little rumply thing, and it's really textural and dimensional because, you know, there's plenty of room in my journal, and it is the second to last day, so so yeah. So I think I'm going to use this little tiny one because that's a bit big for me, but that was just to show you. So what I'm going to do now is just get some of these onto here and see what happens. So I'll get all the raw materials out of the way. I'm going to just use this grey piecing cotton that needs gluing back on that little label. You know, just a neutral cotton that blends with whatever colour palette you've gone for. I'm going to have to decide whether I want to use my bit of cloth this dark side up or the other side. Oh, whoopsie. Yeah, I've taken the cutting mat away because I think my wooden desk is nicer to look at, but it just makes it a bit clattery. So I'll try and be gentle. So that side is obviously the pretty side, but I think it maybe shows up better on the dark. No, I'm going to go for the pretty side. So I think I might start with this little roundy thing, since it's roundy. I'm just going to stitch that on somehow. And see where I get to. Just slap it on there. I'm going to, first of all, you can see what I'm doing because I haven't put the light on. I'm going to first of all do a little back stitch just into the surface of the cloth. Oops, I picked up a hair of the thing, of the chiffon, and cut my tail off. Let's keep the snippies on the mats because of their dangly thing that designates them as the snippies that clangs on the desk. And then I'll just position it how I want it and hold it there, and then just kind of get a stitch through it, or a couple of stitches through it. I'm just literally poking through where it won't be seen. I'm just attaching it basically. Well, it seems to be attached. I can hardly see anything on the back, but it seems quite sturdy. Did I say that you could just stitch them to each other and not to a backing? I think I did. There we go. It's a start. So now I'm going to get one of my little assemblages that I made. Maybe a light coloured one. And I kind of want to circle around that now. So I'm still attached, I didn't cut my thread, so I'll come up kind of where I want this one to go. catching all the hairs from that chiffon everywhere. And just kind of push it around until it lays where you want. And just get some stitch. I mean, it's not any kind of stitch, it's just a tacking stitch, but a tacking in terms of holding it on rather than, you know, I don't mean that you're going to take it out afterwards. So just putting little stitches in to hold it where I want it. And I don't think there's any advantage in trying to pin it or anything. I think it's just one of those things you just have to place it as you go. So maybe I will put I'm going to put the light on. Sorry for the change in lighting, but it's a bit dark. And I couldn't see apart from anything else. So I'm just going into the woolly blanket, you know, the assemblage. Let's call them no, should we call them, what should we call them? Wiggly worms. I'm going into the wiggly worm. I hope nobody's a wormophobe, if that's the thing. And then into the backing cloth, and then I'm coming out on the other side. I'm just doing what's necessary really, but trying to keep these stitches out of sight. I think the artist Fleur Woods, who I saw, I know that the Roxy sisters and Christine from Create and Craft with Christine. Is that the name of your channel, Christine? You know, Christine with Travers the dog. I'll link her channel down below. I'll try and go back because it was some time ago. She did a workshop with an artist called Fleur Woods, which was a similar kind of thing, I believe. I'm just going to get those frayy bits off there. You know, making assemblages and taking nature as an inspiration. Sorry, I had to concentrate. There we go. So I'm just gonna do that really. So I'm taking little stitches through the woolly blanket into the base. I don't know if there's a right way and a wrong way. I'm just doing what I think is deemed necessary. I'm sort of coming up through the back cloth where I want the thing to lay next, the wiggly worm, and then putting the wiggly worm there and then stitching through it. And you can sort of form them, you know, on the cloth and have a look and see what you like the look of. And like I said, I will cut it at one point just to see what happens, because I'd rather I did that than you did it and it went wrong. I think I quite like that sort of shape, so I'll carry on. And I'm probably putting fewer stitches than are really necessary because it's for my journal, and also for, you know, so I'm not here for hours and hours and hours. So maybe you need to put your stitches a little bit closer together than I'm doing. I'm kind of going about 3/4 of an inch. I guess it will depend on what the wiggly worm is made of as to how easy it is to stitch and form. I can't remember what shape I had now, never mind. Oh, there's the neighbour's dog barking. I think I'll just stitch it sort of more or less straight down and then cut it. Dear Henry. But I do wonder if people that do this, you know, professionally, unlike me, make them to the specified length or the length that they want, so they don't have to cut them. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? I suppose I could undo the knot and wind it back and tie it again. That would also be a possibility. Christine, if you're watching and you know and you're happy to share, because I know you learnt it on somebody's workshop, please do. Oops. Right, well, let's call that far enough. I'm going to leave my needle in for a minute and I'm going to cut it and see what happens. I would imagine, because that's all stitched down, the thread that's binding it, I mean, it might unravel a bit at this end, but I can't imagine that anything, you know, that the whole thing can come off. Sorry about the dog barking. Maybe I'll just stitch a couple of stitches over that wrapping thread. Just to help it stay put. There we go. And then just do a back stitch on the back. I don't know what's going on out there. It's a lovely sunny day. It's the morning. I haven't been for a walk yet. I was awake quite early and I came in here and saw this little pile of assemblages that I made last night and just sat down and started basically. So let's have another one. Let's have one of these darker ones. I'm quite enjoying just this, the simplicity of it. I had thought about doing some elaborate spirally thing. I might just audition before I go any further. I guess you could make shapes like rosettes by coiling it. Let me put that down. By coiling it round and stitch it on like that. And obviously you could add other things. You could add buttons and beads. You could add I can't speak. You could add other stitching in between. Like I said earlier, you could add regular couching. I quite like that as a rosette. I might make it a bit smaller. I don't know if I've got a bead here that would go in the middle. I've got my bead tin here. Sorry if my head's coming in. There's a few. Well, that's maybe nice in the middle. Maybe I'll stitch that on first. And then stitch that round it. So, my knot's pulled through, it's because it's very open weave. Still happening out there, whatever it is. So this thread is a bit fine to sew this bead on. Normally I would get a bit of a thicker thread, but it'll do the job. Just make sure the bead lays where I want it to. Maybe one more. There we go. I'll leave the thread attached and come back through. Sorry about the dog, I don't know if you can hear him, but he's obviously not happy about something. I'm just going to trim a little bit of the end of the woolly blanket off there. That hasn't been wrapped. So this woolly blanket is quite flat there because it got thinner. So I think it's maybe a question of just listening to the piece, of, you know, listening to your wiggly worm. It's an earworm. Sorry. And doing what it tells you. You know, depending on its form and how best it looks, just lay it on, try it. So I'm just going to let this spiral round. I'm just forming it as I go. Where's my thread gone now? It's kind of when it's something that's relatively new to you. Yes, I've been doing it for exactly 28 minutes. It's just kind of getting to grips with the best way of working. But I'm kind of now doing invisible base type stitching. That's basically what I am doing. So just a little tiny stitch, and because it's a neutral colour, it's really, and it's woolly blanket, so it's really sinking into the background. You really can't see it. Because I had a flat end, I'm going to overlap that end a little bit. I think some of you will really enjoy this. I hope Nancy does, since she asked for it. Some of you might not like it so much, but that's been the way with all of it, hasn't it? But again, you can, as with all the things, you don't have to make the whole thing, you know, make a piece of only doing this. It's maybe something you can incorporate in some form into your other work. So I can imagine now, instead of couching everywhere, I might do a little wrap to include with the couching, because they do seem to go together. So it's not, you know, you have to do a piece that's all wiggly worms. You can just have the odd wiggly worm. I hope nobody's freaked out by me talking about wiggly worms. To really push that bead down in there, that's better. So there we go, that's made a kind of a spirally thing with a bead in the middle. I don't know what you call it, a flower or a button. It's a bit like a button. And again, I'm going to cut the end off in a minute. Cut the end off now. There we go. Just bend it round where I want it. There we go. Feels sturdy enough. That's a little bit short. I think I will end that off and get a new bit of cotton. And see what else I'm going to put on there. So I'm basically playing rather than thinking about composition. I'm just trying to see what I can do with it. But if you want to make an actual, you know... Oh, that was Fred. I don't know if that picked it up. He's asleep in my basket right there next to me. The basket that's got my slow journal in, my Kate the Brave journal. And he just went, oh, like that in his sleep. Sorry if the camera wobbles. I film with my phone, and it's begun, the last couple of times I've filmed, it's begun, the battery's been getting hot. So I've taken it out of the case. But I'm just worried if it gets hot, it'll stop at one point and I won't realise. I'll have to take it to somebody and see if there's a problem with the battery or something. Do I want more of the cream? I want this darker one that's all flippy floppy. I might echo that shape with this. Did it again. I won't know if you can hear it until I come to edit. Yeah, that looks a bit like a hook. I like them better sort of just wiggling off the edge, or I like it either a circle or wiggling off the edge. A hooky type of shape is not really pleasing me. I think I'll start stitching this on up here somewhere and see where I get to. So again, that invisible base type stitch seemed to be just the job. So it's funny how things that you use for one thing, I suppose it is exactly what we're doing really, is invisible basting it on. You know, it becomes a tool in your toolbox that has more uses, like you can use a screwdriver to open a tin of paint as well as try to drive in a screw. Maybe you shouldn't do that, but you know. I don't know if there's a special tool for opening tins of paint. And I guess you could also invisible based on, like I'm doing here, and then go and couch over with another colour if you wanted to. You know, as well, so wrap and couch the same piece. I guess there's any number of things you can do. I've turned it this way because I want to stitch that way, but I'm going to keep turning it back to see the form because this seems to be its way up. I don't know if I want it to exactly mirror the other one, that seems a bit obvious. Maybe I'll make it go, make a little, whatchamacallit, words this morning. It's early in the morning, my words are still in bed apparently. A little area, let's call it. Oh, now we're going to see just how early it is. Well, it's not that early, it's 11 o'clock. A little nook. You know, like if you get a knot in wood, that kind of shape. And this is the little strip that I wrap really loosely. So this would really lend itself to you finding a lovely picture of tree bark or, you know, a mossy stump or something like that. Either a picture of your own or, you know, something on the internet somewhere, or in a book or a magazine, and representing that. I think I'm going to cut that off now. Nothing bad seemed to happen when I did it before. Nothing came undone. Again, I'm going to just try and stitch over the actual thread. I don't know if that's necessary, but certainly can't hurt. There we go. That definitely looks upside down to me. Now, so I definitely think I'm going to do something in there. I maybe just want one more piece. What about this? This is quite, this almost stands up on its own, this piece. I'm going to end off because I'm jumping over to the other side. I expect I can bend it a bit. I think. Sorry about my hands in the way, but oh, that's quite nice, quite like that. Let's try and get it somewhere there. So if you looked at a picture of wood grain or, you know, vines growing up a tree trunk or something of that nature, you can take your form from that, because if you find a photo and you like it, then just follow the forms within your photo. I'm doing it out of my head. But I quite like this idea of these shapes like knots in the wood. I'm wondering if I can do that there as well. Something like that. Let's try and do that. So this soft string is quite nice to stitch out. So maybe if you're going to use string, just try putting your needle through it first before you commit. Some strings are softer than others. And I have to do a in and out though, I can't do a stitch in one movement because it is much more rigid. But I'm still doing you see the stitches on the back are all over the place. I'm still doing a tiny stitch on the front and a big stitch on the back. So I'm going to let that touch right up against that one there, and then go out again to kind of frame my little fluffy thing that I started with. Oops, I've pulled that silk chiffon again. So Fred, I mentioned a little while ago, and I'm filming in advance. You won't see this until the where are we? The 23rd. Oh, the 23rd you'll see this, the day before Christmas Eve. But my children will be here while you're watching this, so this is why I'm filming in advance. But anyway, I started to say about Fred. Yes, I said a little while ago that he'd had a fight and he had a little wound on his face and it appeared to have healed, but then his cheek got a bit swollen. And so I took him to the vet and he had an abscess. So he got some antibiotics and some anti-inflammatories, and the abscess, I don't want to gross anybody out, the abscess has vacated his person, let's put it like that. He seems fine in himself. He's, you know, sleeping in baskets like he always does, and he's eating and everything. But I hope that has made him a bit less inclined to fight. But she said as well, because the wound's on his face, he's obviously stood his ground. But I wish he wouldn't. But yeah, don't worry about him because he's absolutely fine. The wound is clean, and like I said, he's had the medication that he needed. And he's not too bad at taking pills. If I get him, I sit on the sofa with him in the crook of my arm, sort of backed up against the back of the sofa so he can't reverse. And then I just open his mouth gently and put it in and just hold his chin up until I see his little pink tongue go like that, and then I know he's swallowed it. And the anti-inflammatory is liquid, and I put that on his, he has, you know, cat food, cat meat in the morning. He's one of the 8 out of 10 cats, I'm saying no more. I think I'm going to leave that complete with its little traily bit because I think that looks quite nice. So I'm just going to stitch all the way to the end of that. I've just got enough thread, I hope. And then I think I might put some other stitching into it. see how that looks. Have I got other thread here to stitch with? I didn't pre-plan. I have not. Okay, I've got this pearl cotton. It's number 8, Valdani number 8. I'm going to use that because it's the right sort of neutrally shade. I need a bigger needle. And I might do an eyelet stitch in one of those spaces. Down there so you don't clang. There we go. Sorry, I was just feeling my battery again. So I'm going to go into this space here and do an eyelet, and I don't think I'll cut a hole because it's very loose weave cloth. I'm just going to do an eyelet. So I'll just sort of define where I want the eyelet to be, just with some radiating stitches. Pull my tail through. So I'm sort of visualising a space in the middle and radiating stitches round. You could draw, I'd struggle to draw on this cloth because it's so nubbly and it's a dark colour. But if you just kind of make your first round as if, you know, like when a child draws the sun, that kind of idea. And then you can go around again and fill in between. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my stitches really close together because it's such a coarse weave. We'll see. Now I just go around and fill in the gaps. And I usually make my eyelet stitches all different lengths deliberately. And I like the look of it, and also then if they're accidentally different lengths it looks intentional rather than, you know, trying to get them all the same length and then you have the odd one that isn't. Ouch. Just push the stitches into place with your thumb. And I might go around 2 or even 3 times to fill in, it just depends. Done a lot of eyelet stitching lately, haven't we? If you watched Wonky Wednesday as well, we did the, you know, all the piece that's more holes than cloth by the time you finish snipping at it. Wonky eyelets. But it does, I do think it suits the, you know, the wiggly worms. The bound assemblages, I don't know what you call them. That stitch there was a bit wild, but that doesn't matter, I can just stitch over it. That first stitch, it radiated out a bit too far. You are kind of stitching down in because you've got this quite 3D stuff going on. You have to be careful your thread doesn't catch on things, but you know, it's going pretty swimmingly, I have to say, so far. Famous last words. I don't know what that is, a stray bit of something. I'm just going to go around once more just to make it a little bit denser here and there. So just wherever I can see background cloth between the eyelet stitches, I just put another stitch in and sort of push them into place with your thumb of your other hand. There we go, maybe one there. You can, if you want your eyelet to be really dimensional, you can go and stitch over it, you know, to give it more bulk, to make it thicker. And I won't do that because, you know, of time, but that's an idea. Right, one more. I'll shoot through to the back and then I can have a look at how it looks. That's okay. I think I want to do some seed stitches around the edge of it as well. I sort of like that look. It just untwist a bit. It kind of sets the eyelet into its background. I do that a lot if I do eyelet stitches in a piece. Go and do seed stitch around it as well. Okay, so I did my seed stitch all around. Sorry, I went all quiet, so I'll edit that out. And I'm going to just finish this off. And I could do another eyelet in there, or I could do more seed stitching. I think what I'm going to do is just a bit of a running stitch. I'm going to come up in this gap here. I'm going to do quite big running stitches because I think little ones would not sort of be in keeping with the scale of it. Again, it is a different experience stitching it to how it is just stitching on a flat piece, because you have to, I can't bend it very easily because of the, you know, the forms, the wiggly worms. Yeah, I like that. Carry straight on up. Creep through that little gap. Line frame, yeah. And finish off on the back. And finish off behind my assemblage thing, worm. I've only got one layer. I think maybe I want some more stitching in there as well. I think I want to leave this area because it's got the print in the bark cloth. I think I just want to put some more running stitches in there when I can thread this thread through this needle. Whoops. And if I want to do something here, I'll see. I'll get ahead of myself. I'll just put another line of running stitches up through here. I just like the contrasting look of that, echoing the, whoopsie, I have to do a back stitch on the back because this open weave cloth doesn't hold the knot. Cut that tail off or I'm bound to stitch it through. Right. Oops, didn't go far enough. So yeah, so it's, did I say it's a nice day? I think when I've done this I'll take Stella for a nice long walk. Maybe up the lane and into the woods. And I've got my planning up here. I did a planning. Yes, you will have seen Park Home Life already by the time you watch this. It's a bit confusing when I film ahead. I am hoping in the new year that I can do much more in not real time live, but at least on the day, and that's why I've moved the scheduling. In the new year, all the videos will be up at my 3 p.m. GMT, or British summertime when we go over to daylight, you know, summertime. But now when I'm filming this, I mean, I did it in the summer, you know, when I was moving. I know that all those of you who've been here that long know all about that. Yes, that's lovely now. That's a little path. There's 3 lines, which always gives me pleasure. And I could go on, but I think I'm happy with it. I don't know if I want anything here, because it seems to me that all this is outside the main space. I mean, this is outside as well, but it's sort of attached. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. So let's finish off on the back. Now I don't have a quote for this week, so I'm going to have to give that some thought. So I'm just wondering if I want to put a word here, since we did words not very long ago. And I think I do. I'm going to, this is the selvage. It was strip cloth, so it's that selvage and that selvage. So I'm going to, and the selvage is slightly more firmly woven. I'm going to stitch into the selvage, I think. And I'm going to stitch a word. It starts with an R, and exactly the same alphabet that I used last when we did stitching text. So you can guess as I go along. What's that game show when you get letters and you have to guess the word from however many letters you've been given? Can't remember what it's called. Oh, used to be with an Irish chap in the UK presenting it, called Tom somebody or other. I have to cut that tail off because it's poking over the side. Can't remember. It's gone. It's utterly gone. Right, there's an R. Now I want an O. Try and keep them vaguely in a straight line. Oh no, it wasn't that. No, what I'm thinking of is Name That Tune, and that's about songs, not words. I'm just utterly confused. And that was Tom somebody, an Irish. I think he was a comedian. I'm not sure if he's still with us. But, you know, you had to bid on naming the tune, and then you got so many notes, so you bid 3 notes, and then you get 3 notes played, and you had to name the tune in 3. But that's got nothing to do with words. Utterly irrelevant. Right, I'm having another O. Just going to turn it again so I can make sure I'm vaguely... You've probably guessed the word now since I've been talking about trees. I loved it when we did text, which for me is not that long ago. In fact, it's last week for me, but this is, you know, that'll have been, you'll have had grid journaling in between. That O's way bigger than the other O, but I don't mind. Yeah, I love seeing all the interpretations of text, all the different things you chose to stitch. And this is a T. Did I say that? But I'm going to do 2 more letters as well to make it an adjective. Very wonkily. But that's okay. Oh, I'm sure you can guess what the final letter is. Unsurprisingly, it's a D. Right. And a little triangular D. There we go. I'll finish that off on the back. I was stitching for the slow journal, which you will see this coming Friday. I had to look at my planning. And I used some words there as well, some stitched words. Doing that with yours really sort of inspired me to put more words in my work again. I went through a phase of doing it. Okay, there we go. That's my little piece for the week. Rooted. Inspired by the work of Julia Wright, and yeah, do check out Christine's Fleur Woods inspired. I think it was way back in the summer. I think there are a few videos. I'll find one of her videos, and then from there you'll be able to find the rest. So I'm going to pause now and go and find, go and take a photo of this and look for some words, or think of some words, and then I'll come back and put it in my journal. Okay, I have got some words from a song. And I'm going to stitch this in here. Which is quite challenging, but there we go. I'm going to just use this cream that's still in my needle. And this is the second to last page, and it's quite a flimsy page for such a substantial thing, but I'll manage. Maybe the structure of the actual piece will add a bit of substance to the page. Who knows? Maybe the page will tear. That's also okay. And it's quite long. I haven't got much room to write top and bottom, but I can write underneath. And next Monday, which is the last Monday of 2024, I'm going to show you my whole journal during the video. So maybe I'm sort of telling you in advance so that you can maybe give it a little bit of thought. I don't think I am actually going to stitch something myself. I'm going to do what they call a flip through and talk about the previous weeks and the journey that we've had through the year. But what I'm going to invite you to do is maybe have a think about either your favourite piece from the year. Nancy, who inspired and suggested this piece, put a post in the Facebook group recently asking people to say what their favourites were of all the videos, not only the slow stitch, but you know, Wonky Wednesday and the tutorials and rice bags and, excuse me, I'm just pulling my chair in, all that other stuff. So maybe you can think about if you had a favourite that you want to repeat, or possibly you could look back through your journal and maybe there was one that at the time you weren't 100% happy with, or you know, on reflection you think you could put a slightly different spin on it, or something like that, and maybe you could choose that one to repeat, or maybe you're just happy to leave it at 52. That is entirely up to you, but I want to use the last week, and I might write something on there or something. I want to use the last week to show you through my whole journal and just talk about, yeah, the whole year. So we'll see how long that takes. So here I'm going to put the date, which I have to look because it's the 23rd, isn't it? 23rd of the 12th, 24. Sign it. And my words, now there are words that are used all over the place. It's a common expression, but I'm specifically referencing the song by, the old country song by Don Williams, which is called The Ties That Bind. Don Williams. When I was at college we used to sit around singing. You can hardly read it. That's maybe something else I'll do, is go through and put everything in pen. When we used to sing You're My Best Friend, which is another Don Williams song, but the first line, or the first verse of this song, I should just read it to you, I've written it down here. Actually, I'll read it off my tablet. Knowing you stand by me through good and bad makes all the difference in my life, and day by day, sweetheart, I find these are the ties that bind. So those first two lines are from me to you all. Knowing you stand by me through good and bad makes all the difference in my life. Yeah, these are the ties that bind. That's all the things that we share in common, all our shared experiences and so on that bind us together. So there we go, it seemed appropriate with the binding. So that was week 52. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much, Nancy, for suggesting it. Go and check out Julia Wright's Instagram and also Christine's Fleur Woods inspired piece. And thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to you joining me next week for the final video of the Slowstitch project for 2024. And between now and then will be Christmas if you celebrate, so I hope you all have a lovely time, and I hope you have a lovely week whether you celebrate Christmas or not. Bye bye.